Well, we're still in Genesis, and we're going to spend a lot of time in Genesis because it's foundational. And if you get the basic ideas that come from Genesis, you have a real good background for understanding a whole lot more of the Bible. And so we left off, I think we left Isaac. He survived the sacrifice. And so one of the most traumatic things in the scriptures, one of the most, the best foreshadows we have of the death of Jesus and the sacrifice of the Father of his Son for us, and also the provision that God will provide himself a lamb for the sacrifice. And of course, when we get to the New Testament, Jesus is that Lamb of God, announced to us by John the Baptist as he comes on the scene. So we're following along with Isaac. We've got the patriarchs, they call them, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Isaac survives the sacrifice. He marries Rebekah, and Rebekah is barren, just like Sarah was. She's not able to have children. Well, Isaac prays for her, and the Lord is gracious and gives them a child. And so he's able to continue the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so the rest of the story of Genesis is the story of Isaac's grandchildren and grandchildren and on until we get to the end of Genesis, and it's the whole story of what develops to be the nation of Israel. So as we look through the book of Genesis, there's a unique kind of theme that's all through it, and there's this theme of deception. It undergirds everything. It seems like it's all throughout Genesis, and you see the deception begins with Satan deceiving Adam and Eve. Abraham even deceives foreign kings, saying Sarah is his sister, which she was a sister, half-sister, but not his wife. And Rebekah and Jacob, they go through a thing and they deceive Isaac, and so that Jacob can steal the birthright. Jacob's sons, or get the blessing. Jacob's sons, they're with Jacob. They deceive Jacob about Joseph, telling him that he's dead, he's been eaten by some animal, and they come back. Jacob's father-in-law, when he goes later on, he's going on and he's working to get he's working off his payment for his wives. Anyway, his father-in-law deceives him several times. Then Rachel deceives her dad with, she's stolen some of the household idols, whatever, stuck them in her backpack, her saddlebag, and she's sitting on them, and she says, "Oh no, I don't have them." And Joseph deceives his brothers when they finally come to Egypt, as to his identity. Finally, we end the whole story of Genesis with Joseph finally revealing himself to his brothers, and this whole theme of deception that's just all through Genesis finally breaks, and we see the whole thing. Joseph opens up, the brothers repent, the brothers are sorrowful, the brothers are scared, but they finally come to Joseph, and things are reconciled, and Joseph gives them he says, "No, I've been put here by God to provide for you and for your children, etc. God had a good idea, and even though you guys didn't." And so we see this whole thing comes to an end, and now we're going to go back and look at a little bit of the history that happened in there with Rebekah and Isaac. They have twins, and these twins are real important. They're Esau and Jacob. Now, Esau was the firstborn, and Esau was a hairy guy, red hair, and Jacob was born next, and it says Jacob actually was born holding on to Esau's heel. An interesting picture there, but Jacob's name means supplanter or deceiver, and he was trying to supplant Esau even at birth, and he managed to do it all through his life. His name was, how'd you like to have the name Deceiver? Well, that's the whole theme of this Genesis that we looked at is this deception, and part of the whole theme then is Jacob finally gets his name changed. And that's a good thing. There's a transition. He wrestles with God, gets his name changed. Well, Esau's a hunter. Jacob's a peaceful guy. Esau's loved by his dad more. Jacob by his mom. Parents aren't supposed to have favorites, but it's very clear they've got favorites. So Esau's in a state of hunger. He's hungry. He's been out hunting. He hasn't got anything to eat. He sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew, for some red stuff. It says in the Bible, some red stuff. The birthright defines the rightful heir to a father, his inheritance. Who gets the inheritance? The firstborn, as we look further on in the scriptures, we'll see, I think in Leviticus or Numbers, it talks about the firstborn receives a double portion. The one who got the double portion, that's the designation that they are the heir. And we see this kind of theme in the scriptures in several places too. Elisha got a double portion from Elijah that meant basically, a lot of people talk about he did twice as many miracles or whatever. Well, maybe he did. I don't know for sure on that. But anyway, the double portion was saying Elisha is the prophet of Israel, like Elijah was. He got the double portion. He's the heir. He's inherited the position. And so the birthright here was the inheritance of the designation who gets the inheritance of the father. And so for a bowl of stew, Jacob got this away from Esau. So he's the one, he's now walked into this blessing of the father's inheritance, a double portion from his father. He's the heir now, and he manipulates, deceives, supplants Esau to get this. I'm going to look at a verse here. Sketch this down. I'm not exactly sure. Isaac becomes wealthy. I think I know why. In Genesis 26, it says in verse 12, "Now Isaac sowed in the land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. And the man became rich and continued to grow richer until he became very wealthy." This is an interesting thing, is that the patriarchs were known as wealthy people, which, it's a significant thing to understand, because when we get to the New Testament and Jesus says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And it says the disciples, they were shocked. It's like, because I think what they would think is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our fathers, were wealthy men. We saw that wealth as a blessing from God. And if a wealthy man blessed of God can't get into heaven, who can? So it's interesting to at least have the background to understand these patriarchs and who they were. Isaac was very wealthy. It says he sowed in the land, and the Lord blessed him 100-fold. And I know we teach a teaching on the breaking of the spirit of poverty, and wherever we're at in the world. And I know in Kenya, when we've done it there, a lot of times we play around a little bit with this, and we say, Isaac sowed, and the Lord blessed him 100-fold. But Isaac did something. He worked. And so we do a little math thing, like, what's 3 times 100? 300. What's 2 times 100? 200. What's 0 times 100? 0. So if you don't do any work, even if God blesses you 100 times, you still have 0. So, Isaac was blessed, but Isaac did labor. Isaac did work. And that's the common theme too among these patriarchs, is not only were they blessed people, but they did their part. They fulfilled their part, and God multiplied that. He blessed that. And so we see Isaac was a wealthy man. The next step in this deception thing is Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac, Jacob's dad, to bless Jacob instead of Esau. So Jacob, the deceiver, he's already stolen the birthright. Now he steals a blessing, the blessing of the father, from his brother Esau. Now, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more, but this whole thing with Esau and Jacob, the twins, is a dynamic that we see still expressed in the world today. It's still in the news. Esau, the descendants of Esau, the descendants of Ishmael, and Esau basically married. So Isaac's half-brother Ishmael, his descendants marry Jacob's brother Esau's descendants, and they mix, and they basically become what we know as the Arab people group in these days. The Arab nations are basically descended of them. Most of those in the Muslim faith are descendants of that. And most of those are the descendants of Isaac and Jacob, or Isaac and Israel, are what? They're Jewish. And so we still see this battle going on. And it's almost like Esau is still trying to get back at Jacob for supplanting and taking the blessing. And in reality, the Jewish people, the people of Israel, have that blessing. They have the land. They have the promise of Abraham. And there's still this dynamic that's being worked out even today in the world.